welcome to the 22nd, technically, but not really, episode of the Splitfire Gaming Podcast. This time we're going to review the Triple Crown GT or Triple Crown GTs because one of the guests, Scott, went to the June one, as did I. But we've also got Steve, who can talk about what happened at the practice event, which happened in May. So welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Good to be on as always.
The original / now called Practice GT in May.
Yeah, but speaking of original,
that's where the real gamers went to.
Well, yeah, they did to practice, but they had to come back in June to try it out for real.
No, I mean that was like the FA Cup, and the June one was like the Carabao Cup.
I don't get that reference.
Sport analogy is absolutely lost on Mark.
But this is sort of getting the band back together because we haven't done us three on the channel for a bit.
It's been ages, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit like getting one of the Appletons, Shazney Lewis, and that other one back for All Saints.
That's exactly what it's like.
It's 100%. That's what it's like.
We are just like that.
Yeah.
I don't understand that reference.
Oh, it's almost a catchphrase, but it's not. Well, because Steve's forgotten pretty much all of his games, and I've forgotten 70% of what happens in the games, and I don't even know what Scott remembers. We're going to do something slightly different.
Not 100% sure what day it is.
Yeah, we will reference the games, but it's going to be a more broader conversation about how the lists did, the overarching meta in both competitions, and basically we're just going to wing it and hope everything goes to plan. That was it.
As if we normally have a planned out approach.
Yeah, it's not really all that different. So I suppose we might as well start with lists, and since Steve went to the first one, logically he should go first.
I'm all for logic. Yeah. So obviously, I took a +10 list.
Yeah,
obviously,
as I always do. And this time I took Wood Elves simply because I'd never taken Wood Elves to a tournament before. And surprisingly, I actually got one practice game in before the tournament with this list, which is
that's more than you normally have, Steve, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So with the 5 games at the tournament, that's 6 practice games in total.
It's all before it got sold. Yeah. So
were you selling it at the time?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's pretty much done and dusted by the time I started playing with it. So yeah, so what I took was Treatment Ancient, upgraded to a level 4 on the Law of Life. He was my general. I took a Branch Wraith, and then I took the Sisters of Twilight on their dragon. That was my characters. And then in core, I had Dryads, 20 of them, with a champion. I had 20 Glade Guard with Hagbane Tips, Musician Standard, and Gleaming Pennant. Oh, and a champion in there as well, full command. The Glade Riders, I had 5 of them with a Musician and Standard, and they had Starfire Shafts.
Oh, a different option.
Yeah, it's +1 to wound against destruction, and they're also flaming. So I thought it could be a cheeky option to strip some regen before the rest of the shoot.
That's a good shout,
that. And then I had 10 Deepwood Scouts with a Standard Bearer, and they had the Hagbane Tips as well. I had 5 War Dancers. I had in rare, I had a Young Fire Dragon and a Greater Black Dragon. And that was a Highlander list at 2,500 points.
So just for clarity, Steve, how many dragons was in that list?
That was 3 dragons and Treatment Ancient, so 4 monsters.
Absolutely, you're all.
The comp on that came out. The minuses were the -1 for the level 4 on life from the Great Tree, -2 for the Great Dragon, and then the positives was I had +2 for no scrolls and +2 for no BSB. I had a non-spellcaster mount on the monster. I had +4 for the Highlander, and I had +1s for the Dryads, War Dancers, the Ancient, and the Branch Wraith.
Love it.
That was my overall list. The general thinking being I had 3 highly mobile monsters. They would kind of fly around together and gang up on units one at a time. The Glaive Guard and the Deepwood Scouts were there to basically poison off any war machines I might face. And then the Glade Riders and the War Dancers were kind of there to run interference. But to be honest, and the Dryads were there to protect the Glade Guard in the main.
Yeah, I think the ability that you had or have with Wood Elves to be able to combine that, the ranged threat and the fact that you can do it via a lot of poison with some hard-hitting monsters is just such a good combo.
It was, and the fact that the tree was on a level 4 of life meant that I could heal them up quite well as well. And he had the ability then to pin any big units, being leadership 10 stubborn, that I couldn't necessarily fight on my own or just block up avenues by pinning units in place. Because even if he was taking, some combat rounds, he was taking 2 or 3 wounds, but then when it came to my magic phase, I was fully healing him up back again.
Yeah,
and then
he's got a few spells off, doesn't he? He's good to go.
10. So yeah, he was an absolute stubborn beast to shift.
How did you find it dealt with the armies that you played on the day or days?
Generally, the ones I always felt I had a chance. The big problem with that list, it hasn't got any grindy units. There's nothing in there that can.
I suppose the Treeman's as close to a grindy unit as you get, isn't it?
Yeah, but he's only got 3 attacks.
Yeah.
So it's not really. He's not really.
You're relying on a really good roll on the old Thunderstomp.
Yeah. So against like a lot of armor or a lot of monstrous cav or monstrous infantry or those big blocks of 40.
Yeah, he's never going to win a grind though. All joking aside, is he?
No. He's anything like the White Lion Horde, etc. Witch Elves Horde. There's very little I can grind against that. So that's the big weakness of the list. And of course, over the weekend I played 2 Walls of Nurgle, which is basically a grind army. So
that's what you wanted.
Yeah, I was never going to win big against that. But saying that, I never felt I didn't have a chance at winning. Just not
you just didn't expect to win big against them.
Yeah. And I lost. Those are the 2 games I lost, but I didn't lose by much.
You got 2 losses, but you still did rather well in the end. I don't know if we're going to spoil it now or.
I did, but because, especially against World of Nurgle, they're quite hard to catch the dragons and stuff unless you roll really well on charges, etc. So you can conserve points quite well, which means that even if I don't win, I'm not losing by much. So I can't, to be honest, I can't remember the biggest loss, but
you can avoid damage quite well with that list as well, though, can't you? It may not win big on occasion.
Does it really work on avoidance as well? Because 4 monsters plus avoidance, it's like a interesting blend of army concepts.
Yeah, it does. It means that I can fly around. I mean, I've got 3 breath weapons there as well. So I can potentially whittle down units quite a lot and finish them off with the Glade Guard or what have you.
Do not like breath weapons.
So that was the kind of idea. Jump on a unit, wipe it out, avoid the counter charges when they were lined up because I could fly over them, and then jump on another unit and repeat and rinse and repeat, and get the tree into anything that I just needed to sit there for a while. So yeah, it was quite good at conserving points. So I had a couple of big wins. I had 2 20-0s. I remember that. I think I beat Jack 14-6, and then I lost my 2 games 8-12, and then it was either 7-13 or 6-14. I can't remember which. So I was picking up points even if I was losing.
Yeah, it was because you managed to. You never got that 20-0 loss, did you? It was no. Even your losses were losses where you were taking away points.
So yeah, it was a solid list. I didn't come up against I came up against both the Walls of Nurgle had skull cannons.
Standard, obviously.
Nurgle, Khorne, that
Yeah.
alliance is still holding strong.
Good. Best pals, Nurgle and Khorne.
But apart from that, I didn't really come up much. The one thing I was wary of, and what you have to bear in mind in this like this, that even if you can go, you have to be wary of the magic. So, like against Jax Beastman, for example, I knew he had a level 4 on Shadow. I knew he rolled Mind Razor. So if I went into his main character bunker, for example, the chances are they wouldn't break because I think he had a Beast Lord in there, so it would probably the standard of discipline to be leadership 10 with a reroll. And if they didn't, it would be 6 dice Mind Razor and goodbye to all the dragons next turn.
Yeah.
So it's just being mindful of not only am I safe this turn, but am I going to be safe in 1 or 2 turns down the line when you commit to doing it. I mean, the young dragon I know isn't a combat monster. He's only 5s across the board, but I used him to hunt down either chaff or like the light units like spearmen, archers, anything with strength 3 basically, because then they're still wounding him with 6s.
I suppose as well, he's a effective bit of powerful chaff, I suppose, as well, isn't he? In the fact that he's a distraction because he's still a dragon.
Yeah.
There's some psychological impact in putting 3 to 4 monsters down as well. I think how on earth am I supposed to catch and defeat them?
But it does struggle against anything that can't be thunderstomped. Because I think the young dragon only has 4 attacks. I think the great dragon has 6.
Yeah, young dragon's equivalent to a sun dragon, I think.
Yeah.
So great dragon's like a moon dragon.
From your list, Steve, did you have anything you particularly call out as you really performed? Who gets your MVP badge from the list?
The ancient was pretty good.
Just to be honest, that staying power and the fact that he brought so much healing.
Yeah, and the branch wraith was actually surprisingly good, simply because I only rolled dwellers on the level 4 on the last game, and I rolled dwellers on the branch wraith every other game up to then. So she was the one 6 dicing dwellers at people. So
and who cares if it dies?
Exactly.
I have a feeling I can absolutely support.
But apart from that, everyone kind of performed as expected.
Yeah. Everyone just did that. Everything worked as planned, did its job, performed well.
The sisters were probably not worth their points, if I'm honest.
They just don't die, though, do they? They're as much a point denial as they are.
They were more points denial, to be honest. The shooting didn't work as much as I thought it would. The dryads were rubbish.
Standard. That's why they're +1.
Yeah, but that's built in their profile, isn't it?
Yeah, unless they were heavily buffed by the tree. I mean, the only times they semi-performed was when they were like toughness 6 or 8 or something.
Other than that, let's be honest, they're just rubbish.
Yeah. The Glade Guard were pretty good. That 30-inch range is amazing.
At the 30-inch range with poison is just, it's such a phenomenal threat, though, isn't it? Like, it does what it says on the tin. Like, you're just going to start chipping away at things or killing things. It's such a range.
And then the Deepwood Scouts were solid. The War Dancers were surprisingly useful because I didn't need them as a chaff unit because most of my army was largely mobile. I didn't necessarily have to block much stuff up, but I did find them quite useful as a kind of bunker for the branch wraith to sit with, because then they're immune to psychology. They don't panic. They skirmishes. They can sit in the woods and just be a kind of mini bodyguard for any light units that come towards her.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I wouldn't have thought about putting the branch wraith into the War Dancers.
How much are the tree spirits per model?
The Dryads?
Yeah.
More than deserve to be.
Yeah, 20 is 220 points. So
11 points each.
Yeah, 11 points each.
11
just
points. I
think
can't have any command. Oh, sorry, they can have a champion.
it's
Sorry.
it's another thing, like the type of army that I play. Like, what exactly do you point the army at here? Because the dragons are going to fly away. The tree man presumably is going to go off by himself. Your choices are the what do you call them?
Glade Guard.
Yeah, or the tree spirits. And you're probably only going to catch them.
Yeah, and then the general plan was, if people start moving towards one of them, they've got a choice. Then they either keep moving towards them, get shot up, or they potentially get dragons charging them in the rear.
Or even that, or horde style, especially with T3, you're going to get 3 breath weapons over you before you even get there.
So I think it gave opponents a lot of questions to think about.
I think that's what this list does, isn't it? It's very non-standard. It's Wood Elf avoidance to a core, but not in the traditional way, in the fact that it's avoidance through massive mobile monsters.
I'd be wondering what to do, I think, for a bit at the start of turn 1. Because how can you pin them monsters down?
Yeah. And the key I always found in the first few turns is to prioritise, definitely, with all the poison shooting, anything that could threaten them. And that was the key. Trying to take out anything that could threaten them, and then you
Then let them loose.
Then let them loose, yeah.
Yeah.
You can commit a bit more aggressive with
Well, shall we move on to your army, Scott?
So yeah, my list wasn't, for anyone who listened to the sort of, I think our last chat about, it wasn't massively dissimilar from the list I took. In fact, it was the exact same list I took to Scotland.
It's the year of the Tomb King.
Yeah, it wasn't massively dissimilar at all. It's the same list that I took to the Scottish event.
It's no dissimilar at all.
Yes, it's so similar to the same. Oh, good lord.
So what works? That's the key.
Well, you see, it works. But so Tomb King General, my kind of standard setup for a Tomb King General. So you had the Enchanted Shield, Potion of Strength, Sword of Strike, and Dragonbane Gem. Barely any of which made any difference for the entire weekend. Then a level 4 Nekikara, obviously paying that Hierophant tax. Absolutely naked as a baby. And then a level 2 Leech Priest on Death. Core was 38 Skeleton Warriors, 2 with full command, 2 blocks of 19 Skeleton Archers, standard position, 3 Chariots, had the Banner of Eternal Flame, a couple of War Sphinxes out in special, then both with Fiery Roar, and a unit of 4 Necropolis Knights with a Standard Bearer. And then in rare, I had a Casket of Souls and the Kenrick Titan.
Standard. He's back.
He's back. The big beetle. Big, beautiful bug. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, our idea was, like, I've got the Casket's obviously a lovely ranged threat. Like, I've got a couple of blocks of shooting to sort of try to deal with bits of chaff. Most of me power hitters were the fact that I had like double War Sphinx and the Kenrick Titan, and theoretically, a unit of 4 Necropolis Knights, which should be quite good and never ever perform for us. Like, I think they did well in one game, 1 out of 5. Honestly, like 270 points. It's just lovely models that just torture us. So my comp score was a measly +1, which I think is the lowest comp score I've taken to a Triple Crown event so far. +2 for no dispels, +1 for a Tomb King, +1 for Skeleton Warriors, +1 for being a Tomb King's army, -1 for the Casket of Souls, then a whopping -3 for taking a Kenrick Titan.
How did the Titan do? Was it worth the -3?
I'm not sure if he's worth the full -3 in the fact that the Triple Crown have comped it so that you can be wounded by things that are higher than strength, like that don't have to be strength 4 or above. which I think massively mitigates some of its core strengths. But beyond that, they comped that even though they're both ASL, like you had to do the random attack before Thunderstormed. Now, to be honest, I was lucky and I didn't ever roll their equivalent of Yelling Ball, so it didn't make any actual difference to us. But so he was less effective than he was in previous events I've been to because of those rule changes.
We've talked about this before, and my personal opinion as someone who doesn't play this army and has no real vested interest in it is I don't agree with changing with the core rules. Even the they can march within the general's bubble. So I would say either just don't change the rules or say you can't use the Kenrick Titan.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's Triple Crown can do what they like. It's their event, and I'm still going to go regardless.
I'm not going to stop.
You're right. But
we're going to stop going because of that.
I'd rather not be able to march and have the +3 comp that they used to have. Personally,
that's just personal preference that I don't like changing the core rules, because I think it's when you start pulling that thread, you can then start changing.
It unwinds horribly, doesn't it?
It ends in WAP or something.
Something outrageous, yeah. But no, like, to be honest, Titan Jenny did perform, Steve. To be honest, he was a little bit at your sister's. He's 475 points that you have to deal with, and he's got 10 wounds and toughness 8. Like, he's a chunky monkey to deal with, and much like your threats, he flies with 20. He can fly, so he's very mobile. Really only limited to where I can fit that massive base.
The only good counter I can think of it is cannons, and if your army doesn't have cannons, then what exactly are you supposed to do against it?
I can tell you what's a good counter to it. Mind Razor.
Oh yeah, well there's that, of course. Well, strength 10. Anything strength 10 is going to be good against it.
Yeah.
Are there any problems Mind Razor can't solve, though?
No.
No, there's no, is there? If in doubt, Mind Razor it out. It's just the saying. But I think it was probably, from my list, it was probably a toss-up between the Titan or it was possibly the Sphinxes in general. As a combination of 3 big toughness 8 monsters that did perform well for us, genuinely. I think point for point, my MVP from the list was the Casket of Souls.
Yeah, it's great, that thing, isn't it?
Like 135 points, it's an absolute bargain.
Even though I've faced it loads of times, I always forget the D3 power dice.
All of a sudden you're like, oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah,
and the D3 rolls along. And
it's that. Oh, that's all right. I can cope with that. Oh no, there's an extra 3 dice.
That D3 essentially is a free Spirit Leech every turn. It's me Spirit Leech dice.
Because you would never not take Spirit Leech.
2 Spirit Leeches in the army. Does the Titan have one?
No, I've got a level 2 on death in there, Steve, just for Spirit Leech.
All right. For some reason, I thought the Titan might have a bound version.
No, his 3 bound spells are heal a wound back, a crazy hex spell that stops you or reduces you to hit and movement, stuff like that, which I to be honest, I never cast, and a bolt throw, which I also never cast because, well, naturally, there's quite a lot of spell magic in the army, and the priority was predominantly casting Casket of Souls and Spirit Leech. And Purple Sun when I rolled it.
But like you've just spent forever to hit the thing and then wound it on 6s and then go through its armor and then you get a wound back. Like the amount of effort to take that wound off. Is it bound 3 to bring it back?
Yeah, it's not a lot to cast.
Nah. Don't like that.
No, I'd say roughly everything performed as expected per se. The block of Skeleton Warriors did nothing the entire event, like except bunk Army General and the level 2 Wizard, which I suppose was their job.
What's the theory behind the army then? Is they, like you say, they just staying at the back and then you send all the Titan,
Ah,
the
yeah,
snakes, and all that.
yeah,
Forward with.
yeah. I mean, because I can march, it lets us be quite. I can get quite fast and aggressive with the. Like the Necropolis Knights are base movement 7. So if I can deploy them within the 12-inch general range, it means they can zoot off 14 inches like really quite quickly if they want to. The War Sphinx is base movement 6, so like again they're quite mobile, with the ability to march. And the Titan itself has got a 20-inch move, like isn't undead anyway, so it can always march. I quite like to get aggressive with me monsters whilst, which is probably a something that unravels a little bit, like to be honest. But use the magic power of the casket to hit the target things that I struggle to kill. I would rely on me Titan to kill. So the casket killed dragons, other monsters quite merrily because although even when they've got decent LD, it's still 3d6, isn't it, coming off with no saves. And then obviously Spirit Leech, like those combo of picking out the things that I need to get rid of, and then I could start throwing me Titan in quite willy-nilly into things that I would otherwise the army struggles with. So Warriors of Chaos I played, and like, I'll happily throw the Titan into a unit of Skull Crushers because they can have lots of attacks. Like I really don't care, you're still winning on 6s, and then I'm going to 2d6 Thunderstomp you at strength 8.
Yeah. Toughness is armor at that level.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a 3-up armor save as well, so like he's tough to kill. And because I know that, and because I know people don't particularly like it for whatever reason, I quite get aggressive with it. To be honest, I like putting it on a flank, and I essentially play it almost independently to the rest of my army sometimes. So I almost play the rest of my army like a fairly traditional Tomb King army, whilst having this just very big mobile threat floating around in the rest of the board.
Was there a particular matchup that was really good for you and a one that you struggled a bit more with?
Yeah, I mean, game 1, I started off by playing Chaos Warriors, or Luke Blackshill's like stunning Warriors of Chaos in game 1. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful army.
Got them here. I mean, that's, you can't really see too much, but
it's a army full of old, like really classic old Warriors of Chaos. It's like stunningly painted. And I played Luke like actually I played him at more events than I haven't, to be honest. And I lost game 1 12-8. And truth be told, I think almost all of my points were well, no, that's not true, but a lot of the points were gained by the Titan. Between the Titan and the casket. He did die though. What he doesn't appreciate is Throg punched him in the face, it turns out.
he comes up a lot, Throg.
Yeah, I played the first 2 games were both Warriors of Chaos, both with Throg, both with a Flying Demon Prince level 4 on death, and I just thought, this is how this weekend's gonna go. But I could conceivably have spent the entire weekend playing very similar Warriors of Chaos lists.
There's one thing I realised, which I didn't know before, was that Throg comes with a great weapon as standard.
Yeah, likewise, Steve. I didn't know that till he was like bad 1-5s. 1-4s, I was like, you what? What do you mean you strength 8? This is ridiculous. Yeah, that caught us by surprise in game 1 because, like yourself, I just hadn't appreciated he has a great weapon, and he's a massive troll with 5 attacks or whatever he's got. When he hits, he hurts.
It's his vomit attack that I hate the most, more than that. Strength 5 vomit.
Yeah, and I wasn't as bothered because he was still fishing for 6s.
Yeah, it doesn't affect you so much, which is
So
T3.
But I mean, don't get me wrong, it took them quite a while to grind through. But yeah, poor Titan died in game 1, punched to death off Throg. And then he killed, when he blew up though and died, he killed some stuff when he went. I can't quite remember what, but it was that was funny. I think he got his points. He'd killed a general and a unit of Skull Crushers. something else? He might have got his points. Yeah, but I think a bit of misplay in that game. But it was a good game, tough game. Like I say, lost 12-8. I then played my second Warriors of Chaos game. Very, very similar army from a list point of view, and with the noticeable exception on game 2, Warriors of Chaos turn 1, the Demon Prince that's on that left-hand side of the screen there beside the Chimera miscast and put himself down the hole before I'd even moved my army.
That's a good start.
And that was a good start. Because to be honest, from that point, I then had just complete magical domination. And the Titan literally did anything it wanted in the second game, and I purposely kept him away from Throg. Because, had that bad experience already.
They've learnt from the previous.
Learned from that, yeah. Aye. That was again good game. It was very one-sided once, to a point. Once the Demon Prince had put himself down the hole. Truth be told, but then game 3 I got to play Liam. Obviously a good friend, one of our good friends. He was playing vampires, and he had the Necrolith, the Necrolith Colossus. That mass. Oh, it is.
Is this another thing from Monstrous Arcanum?
Yeah, it's possibly just. It's outrageous.
It is quite tasty.
It is tasty. It's the type of thing I could definitely see you somehow sneaking into a +10 list somehow, Steve.
It's a challenge. Yeah. It's got -3 or
doesn't
4
mean it's impossible, though, does it?
No, it doesn't mean it's impossible.
It's a what? It's got the same kind of attack. It's got 2d6 thunder stomps, just like the Titan. But it gets to pick its attacks. It's not random like a giant. It picks its attacks, and some of them are like really tasty. It's also got Spirit Leech,
of course,
and can heal itself.
10 as well, yeah.
And it's leadership 10.
Yeah.
And because it would go first, I wanted me Titan absolutely nowhere near it, truth be told. So this was Operation Spirit Leech and Casket that thing, whilst chaffing it up. I mean, that photo you had there in combat with the Sphinx.
Oh yeah,
was just the Sphinx being used as incredibly expensive chaff. It's like I just need to keep picking at it a little bit. So here I have a Sphinx, and it was like here I have some chariots.
Does it still thunderstomp everything? Is it still
it's the same as the Titan. So the Sphinx went in, popped its breath weapon, took some wounds off, actually did itself proud, and then got thunderstomped to death. I said, it's a sad time when your toughness 8 monsters getting thunderstomped off another monster. But to be fair, Liam got a little bit aggressive, and the Titan got into. But that picture there is Manfred's block and a block of skeletons, and that Sphinx held for ages, and then the Titan got involved, and then that combat went very badly for Liam very quickly. And yeah, I took a 20-0 win off Liam there in game 3 as well. So I had like 2 solid back-to-back 20-0 wins. And then sort of a bit like yourself, Steve, I had a loss I was comfortable with, like a 12-8. I thought I was all right. Then I went to game 3 and I was playing Andy's Beastman. So driven him 6 hours down to Essex and drove him 6 hours back from Essex just to play him. Which is one of those things, isn't it? And then when Andy or whenever we play like warm-up games, they're always quite close. Whenever we play in an event, it only ever really goes one way. Either it goes very well for one of us and very poorly for the other one. And sort of, it's very rarely just a close game.
You did that again.
Did that again, but sadly not in my favour. Like, I don't know how. I don't know what he did, but I can only assume he's cheated us.
Well, you heard it here, posted onto the internet.
That's it. You heard it here first. He's an absolute cheat. I don't know how. I don't know where, and I don't know when.
Weighted dice. That's got to be what it is.
You know how he cheated? He rolled Mind Razor.
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah, that'll do it.
I mean, what else he did was he took 3 wounds, I think, or 2 wounds off the Titan from Slug Tongue before the game even started.
That's he's only got 8 wounds.
It gets better, Steve, because he then went first. You know that ridiculous magic missile that the Law of the Wild has?
Yeah.
Is it like 5d6 1 or whatever it is?
Yeah.
He took another 2 wounds off the Titan in turn 1 with that. He killed us. He literally killed us. And then I think the turn after that, he 6 dice Mind Razor and killed the Titan in combat. And I said, bollocks. I literally couldn't roll a 6 for love nor money to wound the Bone Grinder with any archers. Like, I was shooting the Bone Grinder with like 58. Sorry. About 42 bow shots, I think it was, every turn. Hitting them consistently, could not roll a 6 for like literally love nor money.
I had that feeling in the narrative game. But come back, it was when you lose 100 shots and can't roll 1/6.
Honestly, the only saving grace was I did kill him using Purple Sun. So that made us feel a little bit better.
Did that take the edge off?
I mean, only just. It was, I didn't play particularly well, truth be told. That's not taking anything away, and he just hands down happily slapped us around for a little bit at the start of day 2, which was a treat. And I lost 20-0.
That's how you want to start, isn't it? With a 20-0 loss.
And as you can attest, it was also hotter than hell. So,
it was quite warm.
The crack den that we'd slept in was horrific. It was roasting hot.
You said, I sagely avoided the crack den that you had to sleep in.
Aye. Well, I mean, good call with hindsight. Yeah. That Colchester crack den just added a certain je ne sais quoi to the whole weekend, to be honest.
Affected performance.
It did. To be fair, like Andy was just as like he was in the same crack den. So I can't even use it as an excuse because we were both just absolutely dying. But then he took it a little bit further and just picked on us. Yeah, that was that. He cheated. Yeah, exactly. Aye, that's right. That's exactly the narrative we're going with. He got the objectives as well. So without the objectives, I think it would have been a 17-3 or a 16-4, I think. But it ended up being a 20-0. And then game 5, I played Skaven. Johnny Skaven, which I'd played with Johnny in a random doubles event a while ago that Andy ran. But this is the first time I'd played against him. And this was a really good game. His Grace AR also miscast and went and put himself down the hole, which was a treat.
It seems to be a recurring theme there, Scott. I mean,
honestly, I was thankful for it, to be honest, Steve, because before that he'd cast that photo you see that on the screen there. There was a massive unit of skeletons there. He then cast Plague, and there was not a massive unit of skeletons there.
Don't want to do that again.
He cast Plague at Dreaded 13th, and I didn't have a unit left. I was like, oh, bugger. I just had 2 characters. Like, there was two little skeletons just sort of sitting there when my characters ran away.
Them there next to the Wildfire Dragon.
Yeah. I then killed. It's a great Warfire Dragon, I think it is. Or an adult one, anyway. It's nasty. More importantly, when it died, it did nasty, nasty things to us, which I forgot that it did. And then I killed it, and it blew up. And things just died. which was hilarious. I was like, I forgot this happened. What a tit. I mean, I had to kill it regardless because it was just flying around, just annoying the crap out of us. Yeah. He had a massive unit of rat ogres
Yeah.
with squeal and rolled poison on them.
So did he never rolled regen when I played him twice.
I don't care about regen. I would have taken that off. But poison was a problem because it was a lot of poisoned attacks that would make it potentially deadly to the Titan.
Yeah.
So the Titan avoided that unit comfortably.
Because it can fly.
And yeah, and at the end there was not a lot left on the board, like at all. Skaven had that unit. Johnny had the unit of rat ogres left because I didn't really have anything to deal with them with, to be honest. Once he'd rolled poison, I was like, bugger. Just have to chaff them up and rely on frenzy to take them away from us. But I killed everything else on the board, and at the end of it, I think I had left my characters in a unit of archers, the Titan, and maybe something else. There was not a lot left at all. It was a really brutal but really fun way to finish the event. And I came away with a 14-6 win. Which I was pretty pleased with. Overall, I was pleased with how the army performed across the 5 games, with the exception of game 4 against Andy, which was a shame. But I relatively achieved the objectives I'd set out for myself with the list, which I know we're going to chat about as a summary at the end. But yeah, that was my weekend and the list.
Very good. So I'll do mine.
The High Elves March to War.
Well, you'll be stunned to hear what I took, which was L'Ariel, a Sea Helm with Armor Calidor and as your BSB. I brought a bow in them for some. I've just realised there, but you never shot that ever.
Actually, you just found on your list you never used said bow.
Yeah, I think I had 4 points spare to make it up to a straight 2,500, but never came in useful. 21 archers, 2 sets of reavers with bows and spears, 25 spearmen with Banner of the Eternal Flame, 5 shadow warriors, 38 white lions with the Banner of the World Dragon, 2 phoenixes and 2 bolt throwers.
Is that essentially the same list you've taken to like the last couple of Triple Crowns?
It is, except the last Triple Crown, it was -4. This is -5 because you don't get extra +1s for each extra unit of shadow warriors.
I'm going to say this once and once only, Mark, and you can ride with it. I do somewhere feel High Elves are slightly harshly comped.
Well, I don't know where you would reduce the comp because it's -1 for the unit between 450 and 599, so that's just standard for everything. -3 for the Banner of the World Dragon on the unit standard, and I think if you took that down to -2.
No, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's right. -1.
I think it's the lack of pluses for High Elves.
There's very few pluses you can take. But -1 for the first Frosty, -2 for the second Frosty.
I'm having to bite my tongue here quite a lot.
God, Steve gets to filthy High Elves can't get stuck into them.
High Elves could take massively high comp scores very, very easily.
You can't take the Banner of the World Dragon unit though.
You probably can. I mean, I got 3 Frost Phoenixes into a +10 list.
Well, I got 5 into a +5 list, but that's
just the list was rubbish.
The list was not very fun to play. -1 for the White Lions over 26, -3 for L'Ariel, and then the pluses all I scraped together was No Dispel, the Sea Helm, a unit of archers of 20+, a unit of spearmen of 20+, and the unit of shadow warriors.
You're going to talk us through your games, I appreciate, but did you find having double Phoenix was worthwhile?
Yeah. Because you can... It's just either you can run 2 into a unit and wreck it, or people tend to shoot at 1, and its ward save sometimes passes like the cannon shot or the catapult shot. That happened quite a lot. So even if you do lose 1, you've still got a backup.
Yeah, it's always good to have two rather than one.
Yeah, it's just all that because that's two. You know, like the three dragon thing. It's two things that you've got to start worrying about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot of armies can quite easily deal with one, but struggle to deal with two. In terms of before they start really messing things up for them. It's like if you've only got one cannon, for example, yeah, you could potentially take out one because it'll take at least 2 turns of shooting. But you can't take out both of them before they start getting into things you don't want them to get into.
Yeah. It was just more thinking at Mark's sort of now -5 list because
Well, you take the -2 out and it becomes a -3, which is still high-ish.
you're dirty man.
Well, it's not me. It's the keep. This should.
I think it's. I'm gonna contradict Scott here a bit. I think it's fairly comped. It's just you're taking all the nasty stuff.
Yes, no, yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think that's
So what we're agreeing on is the nasty stuff should not be comped.
No, I think that's like what we said, but completely different.
Yeah. It's when you take it's basically that list is the standard high elf filth list. It's if you're going to take all the nasty stuff.
This is why you should be running your sisters unit, Mark, because you get kudos and you get cool kid points.
I played a mostly mounted list recently, and that was actually a load of fun. That's like a massive bus of unit of dragon princes and silver helms. So there was no banner. Well, yeah, there was, but there was no white lion horde or anything like that.
I think the problem with high elves is it's very difficult to make a list that you're happy with without going back to the standard build.
Yeah, that's the other thing is I really like playing this this army.
Which I suppose the biggest thing, like to be fair, like it's irrelevant of comp score how it performs per se. If actually it's the list you genuinely enjoy playing the most, then like everything else is give or take irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean it might be fun to like run 25 silver helms in a unit, for example. That could work.
I'd have to buy and paint another 10 for that. But anyway, on that topic of really enjoying this, that's this tournament was at times so table-snappingly frustrating in what occurred. I'm not going to not take this again, but it's really, you can't blame that game 4, which I'll get onto. Like, I couldn't blame my opponent because he's trying to win. I couldn't blame the dice because it's random dice rolls. I couldn't blame myself because I did what I thought was the correct thing to do. So there's literally no one to blame. But that made it worse. The fact that things went wrong and I'd had no one to blame, that made it worse. It didn't take the edge off. But anyway, the first one was I played another high elf list, which is almost a mirror match. So he had a white lion, not a horde. I think he had about 20 odd, 30 I think, 20 odd Phoenix Guard, 1 Phoenix, 2 units of silver helms in I think you've even done 2 wide at that point, and I can't remember something else. But because Alariel was in the White Lion unit and he obviously had the Banner of the World Dragon in his White Lion unit, well, that's not a good matchup. I'm going to lose that. Because of where he placed them, I couldn't cross over to get to the Phoenix Guards because they'd have a slightly worse ward save at 4 up. So I thought that's an all right fight, but I couldn't cross them because then I'd hit them and then get hit by the opponent White Lions. And then he dwellers me down to 20 White Lions. So they were pretty much done. I don't want 20 White Lions against a Phoenix Guard unit that's not being damaged is a bit rubbish. So it was almost like every time I've been beaten before with this unit, with this army, you've just got to go and pick off all the other stuff and then try and see if you can deal with the horde at the end. So I was doing that in reverse, and it ended up as a 10-10 draw. So that was like a bit of a weird mirror match to start the tournament off with. It's playing elves is annoying if you're playing other elves because it just neuters all of your advantages. But then you think, well,
Maybe we should just stop taking elves.
no, that's never going to happen. So game 2, I ended up playing the old enemy, the dwarfs.
The old enemy.
Yeah.
The stunty little buggers.
So this was just, I think the organ guns weren't magical. Everything else was magical. This is just, when you're talking about this 2 phoenixes better than 1. Where are we? I think there's a photo. Yeah, so there's 2 phoenixes there into, I think they are Longbeards or Ironbreakers or something like that. There was another unit behind them. So these 2 phoenixes.
Was this Simon's dwarf?
This is Simon's dwarfs. So he was a -4 this time. So that was a much, like, it's quite an unpleasant dwarf list. But anyway, so they got through 1 unit and got into this unit here. This game here, we only got to 4 turns, and I'm not sure why, because none of us was, I don't think any of us was slow playing. It just seemed like the time went immediately. And this combat here, the White Lions, I think they stripped this unit down to about 1 rank left. But he had that rune that you roll the leadership test on 1 dice.
I love that rune.
It's pretty horrific. Like,
it just screws you over when you're against it, doesn't it?
But this is like another thing where I'm looking for somebody to blame here. The phoenixes there, they bounced on the last turn that we had to play. I got off this unit, so I think I needed to do, it was something either 5 or 7 wounds, and I did either 4 or 6 to break steadfast. Otherwise, they'd be like, but because they're dwarfs, they're now leadership 10, so they didn't go anywhere. And this unit here, with like the BSB, and it's a big, expensive unit, I could have claimed that if I had another turn, because there's no chance that was surviving the next turn. But we ran out of time, so I didn't get the points for it. So that was, again, there's nobody to blame because we just ran out of time. But it was a fun game. I'm not taking anything away from it, but it's just things like that. He's a good
guy to play as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. And it was fun. It was. Shall I do this? Shall we go at the war machines? Which unit shall I charge? There was a lot of great like gameplay style decisions to make. But like when you play Wood of Hammer, like, well, if I'd got that unit, that would have been, instead of a 13-7, it would have been maybe a 15-5. And then at the end, the results would have been that much better. But then, would it have been? If I'd got more points here, would I have been crushed by who I played? And you talk about alternate realities and things.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I don't like doing Wood of Hammer, even though I do it all the time. Games.
It's good to do it when, in terms of learning and getting better, and
for sure,
not what to do and what worked really well, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you're talking about MVP, even at this point, it's definitely the White Lions, as you would expect.
Or is it your BSB character?
Well, it doesn't really do anything except wave the flag when he's occasionally needed.
Did you not do these one trick that actually really worked for you in this game?
Oh, yeah, he did actually. So thanks for reminding me that. So
I'll get you back.
Yeah, so it was this unit here. It was the big horde of, I think it's dwarf longbeards or warriors with great weapons. So he charged them into the flank of the White Lions because they were going up towards where that unit of Ironbreakers, I think it is. But because he can do the reform naval discipline, they just reformed that way. So it's now horde to horde. So then I was getting 40 odds or 30 something attacks into them first. And that stripped, I think he was down to maybe 1 or 1.5 ranks at the end. But he'd forgotten about it. So you can just blow his whistle, reform, and go that way.
Blow your whistle, big guy.
That's such a good rule.
It is. It's such a good rule.
And now when I'm writing lists and you think, well, the Sea Helm's +1, so you can't really not take it on this kind of list. But even if you like, a noble's a lot easier to armor up and still maybe given a magic weapon. But like, nah, I'd rather have the sea helm with no weapons and just these armor of Calador, just because you can get that reform. Because you can just offer people flanks and rears and things like that, and then just blow the whistle and they reform.
You just don't care, do you?
No, just do it. Please charge into the flank. But it was a good game. 13-7. It's just like, yeah, if one more turn, it's like one more turn itis, but it's all hypothetical, isn't it? Well, anyway, that's that one. I played Johnny. You played Scott with these Warpfire Dragon
yes.
stuff. Yeah,
Goddamn Warfare Dragon.
Yeah, this was unfortunate because I'd played him the night before just as like a practice game, and we were just laughing, saying, "Oh, watch us get drawn against each other at the tournament," which of course inevitably happened. So in the practice game is Hellpit Abomination. I just railroaded it on one side with the Reavers, so it just went from one side of the board to the other doing nothing, which I know is gamey, but it's a tournament. It completely changed its mind and just ran, I think, 16 inches forward in turn one. So that put it in range of the White Lions, and the other side of these spearmen, there's some these archers is the spearmen with the Banner of Eternal Flame. So like, well, we'll just double charge that, strip its regen, kill that. His BSB and his Grey Seer were in a block of clan rats, I think, behind the general on the giant rat thing there. So that was where. Here's another thing that I didn't get Fiery Convocation when I needed it in most of the games. I did get it in this one. So I managed to set fire to that unit. So that was sort of slowly ticking down on his wizard, which meant the chances of getting 13th was a bit reduced, because do you risk your Grey Seer dying to Fiery Convocation, or do you try to cast the spell? I did have some exciting Warpfire Dragon action here. So here's another thing where the Warpfire Dragon charged the side of the White Lions. The Sea Helm told them to reform, so he reforms pointing that way. The general there and the block of Storm Vermin had a go at this Phoenix here, and they kill it, but they overrun into the side of the White Lions. At about the time the White Lions killed the Warpfire Dragon, which then had a nuclear catastrophic detonation, which flattened the entire Storm Vermin unit apart from, I think, 2. But I only lost 2 White Lions because I'd got the ward save up the turn before. So he leveled his own. It felt terrible. Well, it didn't really feel terrible, but it was bad.
A liar.
Yeah, true. It's just like, it just looks like a nuclear explosion over a wheat field. It's just all the blades of grass are just falling to these storm vermin. It was awful.
It's a very Skaven thing to do.
Yeah, it fits. I mean, it is made of warp fire, assumingly, warpstone. The spearmen did something for a change. They did enough damage on this unit of Skaven slaves to pop it, but it's not worth any points. And the only thing I didn't get was the unit of frenzied rat ogres. I just fed it reavers and the bolt throwers, so it went off way away, so I couldn't get back into the game. So that was, I think it was an 18-2 or a 19-1, one or the other. This was the one where I was about to walk out of the the gaming hall. Again, travel 5.5 hours down to play Steve, who I've played. Not this Steve, the other Steve B, who I've played 100 times before.
Steve.
This, and it's nothing to do with what playing Steve. It was, it's not that. It's just, it was Blood and Glory So he's got a Witch Star and a big unit of Warlocks, this Magma Dragon. And it was going all right until about turn 2. And LRL miscast on 2 dice to drain magic and blew up and went down the hole. And you can just, again, you know what's going to happen. It's do 6 is right. Well, she's dead. I don't need to bother rolling the rest of these dice to find out what happens. I know it's going to be a 4, and I know she's going to roll the go down the hole bit. And then, so they couldn't wound this thing on less than a 6 because they've lost the magical attacks. And then he just picked off the rest of the army. And this Peg hero charged into the side of the White Lions. But because he's got a magical weapon, but it was exactly the time where because the Ban of the World Dragon works on all dragons, so that dragon was stubborn, even though I was winning on combat res. It then eventually broke, but because this Peg hero was in the side, I couldn't pursue after him. And then he rallied on the next turn, and it's like, when your dice rolling's just falling apart, and there's nothing really you can do about it. It was like that, so I was like, really, not annoyed, but it was just frustrating. Just to see a 350-point wizard explode to cast Drain Magic. So that was a 20-0. So you start I started the second day with a 20-0 loss. But the last game against Matt Pass's Demon Nurgle
Wall.
Yeah, I played that in the May one. Yeah,
this is my favorite game of the tournament because there's history behind it. In that he 20-0'd me at my first Triple Crown by drawing the White Lions into a box made of. It was very much like Can I actually, if you like your ancient history. Oh, I just walked into a trap and didn't see it. It's either one or the other. So he 20-0'd me. It's the first Triple Crown I ever went to. So this was like a grudge match almost, but not, because he's a really nice guy. So in this,
he's always absolute filth, but Matt's a lovely guy.
Yeah, so it sort of balances out. So this was like
why Steve takes really fluffy-less, because he's an absolute monster.
Yeah, you can only.
I'm not going to deny it. Yeah,
you can only have one or the other, can't you?
Yeah.
So I managed to get, using Walk Between Worlds and that, I managed to get the White Lions past the Beasts of Nurgle, going for the block with Epi in. They got hit in the side by the Plague Drones and a unit of beasts in front of the Epi wall. I thought it was going a bit wrong at the end of the combat turn 1 when he rolled whatever it was, then re-rolled and rolled a 1-1, and 2 Beasts of Nurgle just came back. So that was all that effort for nothing. But this was just a grind. So killed all them, turned around, got charged by the Epi block. Then it was just killing the Plague Drones. I think I got the other Plague. Did the other Plague Drones survive? I can't remember. I killed the Skull Cannon with, in the end, I think it was just a Reaver shot. Just luckily killed it after the bolt throwers actually did something and did, like, I think 3 wounds to it in the first turn. And then this was just like, this was great, because the banner, like, I think I lost in total in the entire game. I think I lost 8 White Lions, and they took on basically the entire of his army. So they killed all that. They killed Epi. They turned around, and then I thought, well, just go for it at the end and try and kill the rest of these beasts. So he charged me. I did manage to kill these at the end, but this is how it ended, and I ended on a 15-5, and it was great. And it was a genuinely, not just because it was like a revenge match, but it was just really a really good game. And I'm really glad that I ended the tournament on that game, because it was like ending on a high.
It was a good way. I came on to watch the end of this game. I thought it was a nice way to finish the event against a cracking opponent.
Yeah, that's so it put all my like whinging about I didn't 6 and all that miscasting. Just I'll put that into just. It didn't matter after that. I'm just pleased to end on a.
And you got your revenge.
Yeah, she didn't manage to heroic killing blow anything, unfortunately, but. And I got Fiery Convocation in this one, which was a real help because it sort of halved the epi block before I actually got into combat with it. But yeah, that was the whistle stop tour of my 5 games. But sort of leading into the discussion about what the meta is at the minute, this is hard to use against this big, high toughness, Thunderstomp anything Monstrous Arcana meta. Because
yes, I suppose obviously we were both at the same event, Steve. But I appreciate you brought 2 of the 2 dragons. But was your the matron? Sorry, yeah, I meant 2 of the Monstrous Arcanum dragons.
No, I think they're Storm and Magic.
Storm and
Magic, yeah.
Same difference. Was the sort of the meta at the May event very monstrous heavy?
I don't think so. I did see a lot more monsters.
Magma dragons everywhere.
There was a lot more dragons, not necessarily magma, but also the Warpfire ones.
Yeah, the Warpfire did seem very popular at ours as well.
The greater black ones. Well, not greater, just the greater dragons, the 7s ones.
Yeah.
There was only ever like 1 in each army, which I don't think is that bad, really. So it was kind of just normal armies, just with the occasional monster.
A monster. Yeah.
Which I quite like. It gives it a bit, bit
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, personally, I think if you're gonna invest in a big thing, you need multiple big things.
Yeah, and it always gave which kind of helped me a bit because I had 30 poison shots, and a lot of these armies didn't have war machines, so it gave my bowmen something to shoot at. So I was thankful for that. Because if you've only got 1 big flying thing and you've got 30 poison shots a turn going into it, which are armor piercing, which helps, they tend to hide it, and it makes it a lot less effective. Which then gives my dragons a lot more free reign. And it effectively makes me like a 2,500 point list against the 2,000 point list. But I think there are more monsters than we've seen previously, but I wouldn't say monster mash lists are the meta at the moment.
No, I think the almost the meta some sort of combination, isn't it?
Yeah, I still think as the top 3 armies I think showed in the June one, if you take pretty balanced lists, you can still do, they still do very, very well.
Yeah, I think if I look at the top 3 lists from the June one, the winner was a standard list, but with a dragon, and the person who came third was a relatively standard list, also with a type of dragon, and then from the May event, the winner was a relatively standard list with a dragon or 2. I don't know about the second who came second. And then you obviously had multiple dragons. Yeah, I didn't know if he had a dragon or anything monstrous in his list.
I don't think so, no. I don't think either one of them had that.
No, so Brett's came second at both events, because Devastating Charge on a Brett army is actually broken.
It does blend very well with the lance.
It's incredibly powerful.
Yes, it is. It is. But
so out of the top 3 at both events, though, 2 of the top 3 had brought in either a Storm Magic or a Monstrous Arcanum buff to their list, so to speak.
Just trying to think about mine. So only two of the 5 had Monstrous Arcanum. Both Fire Dragons Monstrous Arcanum, isn't it?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, so 2 of the 5 I played had something from Monstrous Arcanum. And just speaking, like, my army's got it's something that it can't deal with that well, because you go into the Magma Dragon, it's -1. It's toughness 7, isn't it? Or is it toughness 6?
It depends which one it is. If it's the
think it's
medium one, it's
the medium
strength
one.
toughness
Yeah.
7. Yeah.
Strength up 7. So it's wound on 5, like the White Lions say, the wound on 5s, but it's 6s if you're not magical attacks.
Not that I want to see a return to lots and lots of cannons, but you do see less of them these days than you used to.
I wonder if that'll change if more monsters are.
I mean, probably. I think there's one kind of leads to the other, doesn't it? Naturally,
They're still vulnerable to I mean, Magma Dragons especially are still vulnerable to the usual anti-monster tricks. So you're talking Purple Sun, Pit of Shades, losing on combat res against anything that can't be thunderstomped once it's used its breath weapon.
Yeah. The more monsters you see, that just leads to more cannons, which leads to less monsters, which then leads to less cannons, which leads to more monsters, which leads to more cannons.
But like, it's come up a few times that you've said like Occam's Mind Razor. So Shadow is, if you haven't got cannons, Shadow is the natural counter.
Shadow's a great counter to monsters.
It is very good. Yeah, it's got the instant die if you fail an initiative test and the usually low initiative. You've got Mind Razor to get the high strength against them. So yeah, it's got everything in that deck.
Shadow cannons.
We'll be interested to see if the trend of monsters continues, or whether people start getting squeaky bum, thinking people will start taking like the traditional anti-monster tricks.
Did the winner of Dunes was the Empire? Did that have a lot of cannons in it?
A steam tank and a cannon and and a monster.
That's like a blend, or
Yeah.
It wasn't particularly artillery. Well, it had 2 Hellblasters, I think, but and which kind of can take down the smaller monsters. But for the bigger ones, it just had the two cannons, which, to be honest, for an Empire army is fairly standard to have a steam tank, a cannon in.
Yeah. I mean, and again, without being, you'd expect to see an Empire to have at least 2 cannons, as in a cannon and a steam tank. Why the hell wouldn't you? Your Empire, your troops are crap.
Unless you have a Shadow Mage.
Yeah.
That's what. Sorry. Razor. Oh, I mean, yeah. I'm debating about using the Empire again next year for a little bit, and I've got a +10 list in mind that absolutely has a level 4 on Shadow.
Well, I wonder if it's even worth putting a level 4 Archmage on an Eagle or something on Death.
Now you're cooking on gas.
So then you can. Well, naturally, I'd want to put them on a Star Dragon, but that's so ludicrously expensive, and also a monster. Maybe not. That's just a big target on him.
Just need to see more Terrorgeists.
Yeah, they are really the anti-monster ones, aren't they? Terrorgeists.
And to be fair, pretty much anything ethereal, unless you happen to be one of the few monsters with magical attacks, it's just a spirit host will pretty much deal with them.
I would be happy with a lot more monsters having magical attacks. Magical breath weapons, that's all fine with me.
Yeah, the Wood Elf ones have magical attacks.
See, that's a trend I'd like to see continue.
I think you can give A-bomb. Can you give A-bombs magical attacks?
Yeah,
you can give them a warp stone, something or other.
It's hilarious when they're not given it, and then they go into a White Lion horde, and they're like, ha ha ha, no magical attacks. Avalanche of flesh!
I still fancy the White Lion horde. Or you just take a unit of spearmen with Banner of Eternal Flame.
I mean, yeah. Oh, you know what else will deal with it? Mind Razor.
Well, actually, it's high initiative, isn't it? So Pit of Shades, maybe not.
It's initiative 4, I think.
So
for a monster, it's quite high.
Yeah. Third about chance to do it.
So I suppose we didn't mention where we finished earlier. So I think
we don't have to if you don't want to.
A chance to say so. Well done to Steve for coming third in May.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And
With a plus
unfortunately, I had to go home with the winner. Yeah.
Backup Steve came first. Congratulations, Backup Steve.
We don't mention that guy.
That guy is filthy, filthy Dark Elves.
He keeps begging to come on, but
he's not welcome because he plays Dark Elves, is what you're saying, Mark.
I don't mind Dark Elves. What I do mind is that list being a less comp than my list.
I can see therapy having to be taken here.
I think we discussed it more with this in our very segue off, Steve, to see what you think. Dark Elf, quote unquote, filth would essentially be fixed if Witch Elves were a special instead of a core.
Yeah.
It would essentially fix their problem and make them probably quite a more balanced army. I mean, for an elf, it'd still be powerful.
They don't have a core tax, which is just phenomenal. You're paying for your Death Star horde out of your core.
And the best fast cav in the game.
And the best fast cav in the game. And fast cav, magical, ward save, nonsense. I'm going to go on a rant now.
Oh, yes, before Mark has an attack. So, yes, congratulations, Steve, and congratulations, Backup Steve.
Yeah, grudging congratulations to Steve Inferior.
Steve Inferior.
He doesn't listen to this, it doesn't matter. But speaking of congratulations, we had another quiz win for the third time in a row.
More importantly than anything else, that's right.
We came second in May. Unfortunately, we couldn't quite get there.
We maintained our unbeaten record of attended a quiz, won the quiz, got a free round of drinks from the quiz.
And yet again, they've still to include a difficult high elf round. I don't know if they've got any plans of...
You have actual problems.
I don't know if they've got any plans of introducing high elf questions which are, a challenge or...
Or just someone who aimed at someone who reads the book. They need to ask you that's not in the actual high elf book.
What, some of the peripheral fluff?
Yeah. I mean, they don't, because then you might get it wrong, and then we're at risk of not winning.
Yeah, we only won by half a point.
Yeah, but the people who came second had done the quiz already in May and still didn't beat us.
Yeah. So it probably cancels each other out, that.
That's right. It's not about the Warhammer guys, it's about the Warhammer quiz. We all know it.
Well, since I only came 21st in this, I'm going to...
Perfectly average again, Mark.
Perfectly average, yeah. This year hasn't been good. That's for my playing. I don't feel that I'm as good as I was last year. And I don't know why.
Maybe it's because your list doesn't deal with monsters, Mark.
Well, even at Cardiff, I didn't do that well. And that's with the Shadow list. I might go back to that, actually. I like that list. I might just try and force that to work. Not for Triple Crown, but for the other stuff.
I'd set myself the target of coming in the top 10 with Tomb Kings. And not that they do it, but if there was multiple Tomb Kings, I wanted to finish top Tomb Kings. And I achieved both of those things. So I finished 9th. So
I was top high elf at 21st. So there's something.
You were top high elf at 21st.
Yeah. Can't take that away from us.
Wood elf. That was...
there was finished just behind you. Kate was Wood Elf as well, weren't there?
Yeah, there's some. I think.
Oh god, it was 3 out of the top
10. There was
3 out of the top 6.
There's a lot of good
in the May event.
Yeah.
Two, I did notice, and I'm just looking across both of them. There were a lot of Warriors of Chaos at both events.
There was 7 at our event and 7 VCs.
See, VC or anti-monster. So there you go. You want to be anti-monster, take VC.
Creeping in. VC, Shadow, Cannons. Think that's what we'll see at Derby?
Well, I think I'm having I'm intending to have a bit of a change. I've had my Tomb Kings for 4 events in a row now. And I'm very tempted to go back to Vampires for Derby.
Think of what you know. That's your equivalent of my White Lion Horde Alariel list.
I mean, ish. Yeah, ish. It's slightly different to me old list. But I've had to filter it up to get to -2. Not make the mistake I did last time at Derby and take a +2 list thinking it makes any difference.
Yeah, read the comp, as we say.
Yep.
Not on the
I
way
actually
down.
looked at my armies and realised I didn't have the models to make a +2 list.
What a problem to have.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, well, we'll see how. Because we're going, aren't we, Scott and Steve? You might be going.
No, I can't make it.
No, you can't make. All right then.
Going, yeah.
Fine.
Yeah,
So
love
is
to
that
give it
is that next recording a pre-Derby recording then, Mark? Is it?
Yeah, we'll do a pre-derby when I can sort out what list I'm actually going to take, because I'm
I
still
haven't
not sure.
finalised my list either. I'm hoping to finalise it this week.
And then we'll have a look at that, because I like Derby. It's a bit different.
Different. And then Steve can tell us why both of our lists were the wrong decision.
Yeah, that. You can just sit there and
Yeah, I can always go to the list I would have taken.
yeah, it's hypothetical.
It'll make both of you cry.
They always do, Steve.
Yeah.
They always do.
There's no real change there, is there? Well, anyway,
Love and loathe you. You filthy
well,
beast.
it must work because he got third place.
Yeah,
and he was
Still
feeding
that's what it is.
Because he bathes in the tears of the people he beats.
and he was feeding the guy who won the May event information. So yeah, I know what's going on.
But as ever, I mean, it almost goes without saying, but it shouldn't. Like Triple Crown just runs such a genuinely excellent event.
We should say that again. Knock it out of the park. Even though it
Every
sounds
time.
like I've been complaining. No, I had a brilliant time, as I always do.
I'm mega looking forward to next year. Obviously, they've managed to get a different venue that hosts like 70 people, which should be amazing.
That
will be
really
amazing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Also, the part of us will certainly miss the current venue because it is amazing as well. Like it's such a lovely, lovely venue, and like the staff are incredible.
I think they still keep that on for the narrative.
Yeah. I hope so, and I'm sure they will. But yeah, I mean, like you say, it doesn't go without saying. But thank you to the Triple Crown guys for hosting an incredible event, and everyone else who shows up to allow us to play this this game.
Yeah,
nerds,
again,
filthy nerds.
It's you don't really ever have a bad game because your opponents make
you
it.
Don't. Yeah, not these days.
Unless you play
in the right spirit. Well, unless you play you. Yeah. So I went to June. Like, oh god, that arsehole's at me.
It's when I rock up with a mop and buckets for your tears. You know it's not going to be fun.
Did you coat your bronze dice in the tears of your enemies before you left?
I'd already drank and bathed in them, so I didn't have any left.
Well, on that bombshell, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you for a bit different review of the whole thing, rather. But we'll be back for a pre-derby review or preview, should I say?
Preview.
So, see you on that one.
Thanks.
Thanks.